Charlotte Tetley should never have died the way she did. At the age of 33, she sat down on railway tracks in Macclesfield and was killed by an oncoming train. Newspapers have reported her death as a tragedy caused by mental health struggles. That framing hides the truth. Charlotte's death was not inevitable. It was the result of years of systemic failure, neglect, and betrayal by the very authorities who were supposed to protect her. Charlotte was not simply a woman with complex mental health history. She was a survivor of the Rochdale grooming gangs. Her abuse as a child was the starting point for everything that followed. To understand how Charlotte died, we must first understand how she lived and how she was failed at every stage. The starting point. Charlotte Tetley was abused as a child by the Rochdale grooming gangs. This was not a one-off trauma. She was gang raped. It shaped the rest of her life. Like many survivors, she carried PTSD, emotional instability, and profound distrust of institutions that had ignored or minimized her abuse. Instead of long-term safeguarding and dedicated victim support, Charlotte was left to navigate her pain alone. The first failure is that the state, to this day, has never created a robust, lifelong safeguarding pathway for grooming gang survivors. Charlotte's abuse was treated as a closed case, not an ongoing crisis. Like many of the survivors, Charlotte coped through drugs, and she was punished for the symptoms of abuse. The coroner explicitly recognized that Charlotte used drugs as a coping mechanism for the trauma of abuse. Yet this reality was inverted. Instead of being treated as a victim, self-medicating against unbearable pain, her drug use was criminalized. Rather than wraparound trauma services, she ended up inside a cycle of probation and community orders and nothing but stigma. This is the second failure. The system punished Charlotte for her coping mechanisms instead of addressing the root cause, the trauma inflicted by being gang raped as a child. The failings continued. Charlotte was then forced out of Rochdale because her abuser was allowed back into the community. In July 2023, Charlotte was forced to leave her home in Rochdale after one of her many abusers was allowed to return to the town. This meant the victim, not the perpetrator, had to uproot her life. She was moved to Macclesfield, far from her support networks. This is the third failure. Authorities prioritized the rights of a convicted child sex abuser over the safety and stability of his victim. In Macclesfield, Charlotte faced homelessness and ongoing destabilization. Her accommodation was insecure. The coroner noted that her ability to take prescribed medication was influenced by whether she had accommodation. At times, she was effectively homeless. Without stability, her mental health deteriorated further. This was the fourth failure. There was no trauma-informed housing pathway for grooming gang survivors such as Charlotte, who are forced to relocate because their abusers are coming home. Clear warnings were then ignored by mental health services. In June 2024, Charlotte attended A&E, told staff she was having thoughts of jumping in front of a train. She was reviewed daily for a week, but judged not to require an inpatient bed. She was discharged without a qualified assessment of any kind. This is a breach so serious that the coroner has raised this formally. Charlotte was a direct suicide risk. Disclosures were downgraded and dismissed by mental health services. They just wanted rid of her. This wasn't the first time though. Charlotte had multiple suicide attempts, and she still was not taken seriously. After discharge, Charlotte phoned her probation officer, screaming that she was heading to the tracks. She phoned her family saying the same. In September 2024, she was physically removed from railway tracks by mental health teams. Yet still she was not admitted for inpatient care. What are we up to? The sixth failure, I think? Here we have the repeated explicit suicide attempts of a young woman, and they were treated as manageable in the community rather than medical emergencies. Just what were these people playing at? She went missing, high risk missing, but no response for the police or ambulance. On one occasion, Charlotte was classified as a high risk missing person. Police decided no one would be deployed. Ambulance services also refused to deploy, claiming her location was unknown. The net result, no emergency response to a known imminent threat of suicide. The seventh failure, the emergency services abdicated the safeguarding duty, leaving a known at-risk woman entirely without protection. And in the final weeks up to her death, suicide, her killing, September the 24th, 2024, Charlotte missed a court hearing but spoke to a mental health key worker, again voicing suicidal thoughts. Later that day, she attended a drug and alcohol service office and was described as tearful and low. Shortly after, she sat on railway tracks in Macclesfield and was struck by a train. The coroner's verdict, Coroner Sarah Murphy, issued a prevention of future deaths report. She highlighted Charlotte's removal from an inpatient bed list before qualified review even took place. She even warned that future deaths will occur if action is not taken. This is the unavoidable truth. Charlotte Tetley's death cannot be reduced to mental health struggles. She was a child victim of the Rochdale Grooming gangs. She was forced from her home to protect an abuser's right to return. She was destabilized, made homeless, and she was punished for using drugs to cope with what had happened to her. She told professionals repeatedly she wanted to die. She attempted suicide multiple times. Police, NHS, probation, all of the agencies, all of them knew, and all of them failed. Charlotte did not slip through the cracks. She was pushed through them, step by step, until there was nothing left.